The New South Wales government has pledged to buy back homes in flood zones and relocate a major portion of the Lismore population. This after a government inquiry into the flood disaster in the state's northern rivers. They also backed community calls to future-proof the region against another disaster and made a $2 billion commitment to extend the Warragamba Dam wall. Joining me live now is the New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet. Thanks for your time. Are you being heckled or are you a hero in Lismore this morning?
Oh, well, Laura, I'm in Ballina today. I was in Lismore yesterday. And look, it's pleasing to see that there's a lot of progress that's been made over the last 5.5 months. But there's still a lot of pain, distress since the catastrophic event that we had close to 6 months ago. And there's a long journey ahead. And that creates many challenges for many people. We put a lot of support in to get people into temporary accommodation, but there's a long way to go, and we need to follow those recommendations that came out yesterday to make sure the mistakes of the past are not made in the future. And we do everything we can to get people back into homes, out of temporary accommodation and into homes as soon as we can.
These people have been in limbo for such a long time now. Hundreds of homes are worthless, if not thousands. You talked about a buyback scheme, but when are you actually going to buy them back?
Well, by the end of August, we'll open an expression of interest through the new reconstruction authority that we have established. And that will be for landowners who we may be able to purchase their land for use for relocation of homes. So we will start that process, and then I'll be working very closely with the federal government in the establishment of a criteria for those people who live in homes in those areas which we need to move. So I spoke to the Prime Minister last night. We had a very constructive discussion around how we will proceed in relation to a joint funding arrangement. That's on us at a state government level to come up with that criteria and work very closely with them. And I was pretty happy with the discussion we had last night in terms of the way forward. But the short answer is, Laura, as quickly as possible, I want to provide certainty to those people who have been affected. I understand and appreciate the angst, I guess, that comes from releasing a report yesterday. Directionally, we've said we will go down this path, but we need to provide that certainty for people who have had, in many respects, that their lives turned upside down, and there's a lot of pain here, and I need to provide that certainty as quickly as possible.
So what are you waiting for? In many ways, do you want the federal government to pay half?
Well, that's what's occurred in similar situations in the past, but this is obviously of a much greater scale than we've seen in the Grantham floods, and so we need to work through that criteria properly. It's not just the northern rivers that have been affected by floods, there's other areas of New South Wales as well. And what came out through the report yesterday from Professor O'Kane was that we need targeted solutions for different communities. There are some communities where we need to take a certain approach, and others a different one. And we'll work through all of those details. It was a very in-depth report. I think both Professor O'Kane and Mick Fuller have done a superb job in relation to the issues, not just in relation to changes to emergency management, but in relation to future planning and climate going forward.
So what about the Warragamba Dam wall? Is that also a scenario where you would expect a 50-50 split?
Well, we have raised that with the Commonwealth Government. We're in the final planning phases of that. We've obviously been in communication with the previous federal government, and that the former Prime Minister had spoken favourably about going into a joint funding arrangement in respect of that project. It's a complex one, but it's one that has to be done. What came through the report yesterday was that by 2040, if we had a 1 in 100 year flood, we would have to evacuate around 40,000 people from the Hawkesbury Nepean area. So there's two aspects here. We've got to stop making the mistakes of the past and developing homes on floodplains going forward. So we need to stop that today, and then on the other side of it, we've got to look at what are the prevention measures for where we sit at the current time. So raising the Warragamba Dam wall is pointed out once again in this flood inquiry, as a very important project that will ensure that we save lives and property into the future.